Hi, I am here to show you how to enter your learning targets into Google Sheets for the purpose of student self-assessment. I've already copied my learning targets from my Google Doc or my Microsoft Word document, so I'm going to paste them into my Google Sheet. I do not want my targets to expand across all the cells. I want my targets to appear in one column. To do that, you can go to Format, because your whole column A is already selected, and you can wrap the text that way, or you can use the Wrap Text button on your menu bar. I'm going to click the Wrap Text button on the menu bar. Now all my targets appear only in column A, but I don't want that column to be so thin, and I want to make it wider. To do so, I place my cursor between the column headings A and B, and I stretch it out to my desired width. Once I have my targets in column A only, I can choose to format my targets some more. For example, I want to label the column to tell my students that this is their targets. So I am going to insert a row above here. And I'm going to call this targets. Now I also want my target numbers to the left, so I'm going to put my cursor anywhere in this column and go to Insert, Column Left. Now this is going to be target number, and I don't need the columns to be that wide, so I'm going to place my cursor between the letter headings, and I'm going to move it over. I'm going to number each target, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm also then going to want in this column these targets to be aligned in the middle, so I could click on the column letter heading and center those numbers by going to my menu bar till I see the alignment button and go to center alignment, and that puts my target numbers in the center. Later I will go through and delete my numbers 1 through 4 that are actually written in the worded targets. When I copied and pasted my targets in, it also inserted an empty row, which now I'd like to delete. To delete a row, you can place the cursor in that row and go to the Edit menu and select Delete Row 3. It will automatically tell you what row you're in, edit, and I'm going to delete the rows that I do not want to appear, that are empty. Now that I've deleted my rows and I have my targets, here is my area where my students are going to enter their ratings, whether it be a rating on a self-assessment or after a formative quiz or a summative test. I tell my kids what I want them to name it, so some teachers to choose to call these columns beginning, middle, end. I'm going to tell my kids we had a formative quiz on February 4th, and you're going to enter your ratings on the targets in question after you receive your assessment back. So then they'll enter their rating number, whatever scale you might have, they just enter their rating number. They might have 2 or 3 times they rate before the unit is over or more. I'm going to choose this column here to represent my last column, which will identify the maximum rating that my student received throughout the unit. So that'll be maximum. I'm going to put some other values here so it will calculate the maximum or identify the maximum value. To enter the formula to identify the maximum value for this particular target in the row, I'm going to go to my Functions button. If yours does not appear, there's a More button here. You click More, you will see the Greek sigma symbol, and then the word Functions will appear. When I click on Functions, I see some mathematical functions I can perform, and max is maximum. So when I click on maximum, I have the equation. I want to identify the cells for which the maximum will be determined. So I know from this cell, I'll click and drag to the cell I want to include, and then I'm going to hit return. And that's going to identify my maximum in this row is 3, which as you can see is correct. Now just for fun, I'm going to enter some in the next row so you can see what happens when we decide, to color code our ratings. Now I don't want to have to go through that again for every row in my sheet, so I can copy this formula into all the rows underneath it by dragging the corner of the cell down, and it copies the formula, enter 0 for where there are no numbers, which is fine. And now I want to make this more than just a black and white piece for my students. I want to associate their ratings with colors. That's called conditional formatting. So I can click on the column I'm interested in to conditionally format to arrange numbers to be matched with colors and select conditional formatting. Once I select conditional formatting, I can identify what color I want each number to be. If you want to do some other things like greater than, less than, equal to, you can play around with those. We're just going to keep it with text contains. My maximum rating in my class is number 4. You want to change the background color to highlight that whole cell. I don't like changing just the text color because it's not as obvious. I like to select green for go because that's where we want to be. We want to be at 4. But I want to keep going. You don't have to hit save rules. You can add another rule. So I'm going to say my 3 is background color yellow. I'm going to say by adding another rule that a rating of 2 is background color orange, and if I'm a 1, then that means red alert, need to get some help. And now when I know I'm finished, I hit save rules. And notice it color codes the maximum for the cells that have, the rows that have data in them. Teacher brought up earlier today, you can color code every column if you like. I just like the ending because it keeps that maximum and identifies that maximum throughout your unit as you assess during formative or summative or just self-assessment. Okay, and so now that we have our maximum value, another thing we can do with the data for students to see growth and progress is to display bar charts. So to do that, one thing you may want to calculate is their average. So I'm just going to get a couple more values in here so we can actually see what is going on with the calculations. I'm going to enter one row of dummy variables. There we go. Oops, 5's not one of them. 4 and 2. Okay, so I want to calculate an average, and each column here represents my target frequency. So I'm going to label that target frequency here, which will be important for creating my bar chart, but that heading is a little far to my left, so I'm going to go to alignment button here and align that to my right. I also might want to make that bold-faced and italicized so the students see it. This is the first time I've rated myself, the second time, and the third. So those are the ratings, okay? And then these are already, again, entered in before the students get the Google Sheet. This is going to be my average now, so I'm going to bold-face, make it bigger, sorry. Here I'm going to enter my average right here. I'll call it average. I'm going to align that so it's in line with the other one. I'm going to italicize it, and then now I'm going to enter the formula. To enter the formula, remember any formula you want plus more, you go to the functions button under the more button, and here I'm going to click on average. I know I want to average my cells from here all the way down to here. So when I'm done, I hit enter, and I can see down here the average value has been calculated. I want the same calculation to appear in my next two columns, so I click and drag the corner of the blue box and release. And now I can see that it has been calculated that the average in each column is right there. Now we want to enter the chart or insert a chart so the students can see their progress in a bar chart. So I highlight the rows I want to plot. I go to insert chart. I know from experience I need to select switch rows and columns. Using row 6 as labels tells it what data to grab to plot. I don't want my bars to appear left and right. I want my bars to appear vertically, up and down. So I choose that orientation. And now I can kind of see that this is the rating 1, rating 2, rating 3. Oh no, I went down. And that these are my averages for each time I was rated. And when I know that looks about right, I'm going to hit insert. Now, for now, our chart is on here, on the same as our sheet. Soon I'll show you how to move it to its own sheet. You could do that as well. To edit your chart, we're just going to move it to your own sheet for viewing purposes. But if we were going to do things like right now, change the title and label the axes, we'd go to Advanced Edit. But first, I'm going to move it to its own sheet so it appears nice and big. You will see here, sheet 1 is our data. Chart 1 is where we're plotting our data. Now, sometimes I like to keep it on the same sheet as the data so the students don't have to flip back and forth. Sometimes they forget to look at the chart. So if it's on their sheet with the data, it's front and center. So I go to Advanced Edit, and here's where I can click in my chart title, Average Rating versus Rating Frequency, or whatever you want to call it. Okay, frequency. And that's my title. And then I do my axes labels. So horizontal, left and right, is rating frequency. That's how many times I've rated, or the students have rated themselves. And then vertical axes is called their average rating, because we took an average of their ratings each time we did an assessment. So then I go to update, and there we can see our bar chart. The first time we rated, there's my average. Oh no, I'm going down. Something must be going on. Okay, and then we go to sheet 1. There's our data, and there's our chart. Once I've set this up, so when I create my sheet as well as the chart, you really only need to have data in the first row. I set up the maximum, the conditional formatting for the colors. I also insert the chart. And then I share the Google Sheet through Hapara for the students to use. When I want to see how they're doing, I can look in their Hapara folders, or I walk by their computers as they are entering their assessments for their ratings. Thank you very much for listening.